So please welcome the CEO, founder, and everything else, the Lord of everything to do with Mailman, Andrew Collins.
Nice work. How's everybody? Oh, you're off. Jasper, they told me we were going to exchange. Some exchange? No? No, they told me, but that's all right. Great to see everyone. It's the lucky last session for the day, so don't worry, you'll all be hitting happy hour within 45 minutes to an hour. I'm going to host a session as we explore how global sport is interacting with esports. What the hell are they trying to do to tap this emerging esports economy in Asia? First up, I'm going to welcome Carlos, I've got to get this right, Alimurung. Welcome to the stage from ONE Esports. Give him a clap. And we've got Russell Tan from LaLiga. Please join us. Thank you, guys. Looking very sharp. You know the guys in sports, when they wear a suit, they've got a tie here. So, Russell, you're the first guy today, I think, wearing that. Take a seat. Let's get into it. Where to start, Carlos? You guys are doing everything.
We are, because there's a lot to get done in the world.
You do. You build this enormous mixed martial arts organization across Asia. And now, all of a sudden, you're, what, 2 years into your role as the CEO. Talk to us, what are you doing? What is ONE?
Yeah.
Talk us about the business, where it's going, what are you looking to build?
Yeah, I think a great question there. First is, one thing that we've learned from our brothers and sisters from ONE Championship is that storytelling counts. And when you take something like martial arts or mixed martial arts and you wrap it with incredible, compelling storytelling, that's how you get the engagement, that's how you get the traffic, that's how you get fandom. And when we look at esports, one of the needs that we see is that the storytelling, frankly, isn't to the same level as in traditional stick and ball sports. I mean, if you look at football, American football, baseball, basketball, the storytelling there is incredible. The example that I always love to use is, you go to my mom and you ask her, hey, Mom, give me 3 rules around basketball. She'll say nothing. But if you ask her, name for me a famous basketball player, she'll say Michael Jordan. Now, why is that? That is because the storytelling that they do in the NBA is superb. And so when we look at the opportunity in esports, we think of it that way, which is how do we really supercharge the storytelling? And that's why, and then I'll end here, is why our mission is what it is, which is to share and celebrate the stories of esports heroes to ignite the world with strength, hope, dreams, and inspiration.
Asia or the world now?
Well, when it comes to the esports business and as well for our martial arts business, our eye of the prize is the whole entire earth. Obviously, we're incredibly strong in this part of the world, but the United States is the 4th largest source of traffic and engagement for our esports content, and China's not far off either.
Great. We've got so much to get through over the next 30 minutes, but I want to welcome Russell here. Talk us through, I mean, you work with LaLiga, global football league, globally renowned. Talk to us about what is the league's esports strategy pertaining to the world, but more specifically for you in Asia?
Yeah, I think if we look at what LaLiga is doing in esports, I think we can split it in 2 ways. One is nationally in Spain, where obviously the league is based, and second would be internationally, right? So nationally, we're actually really, really strong, as you can imagine, with not only the brand power that we have there, but also just the natural interest in football, right? So for us, we've actually had a 10-year partnership with EA Sports for the FIFA titles. And from there, we've been able to really add that authenticity and really the experience into both the virtual world and the real world. So part of the mission of this partnership alongside EA is actually to try to blur the lines between physical football and virtual football. So I think, obviously with Carlos and ONE Esports, they focus a lot in terms of the competitive side of things, whereas for us, we believe that similar to professional football, where LaLiga is at the top of the pyramid, right? But everyone else below is what we're trying to reach. So all of that, they are our fan bases as well. So we're trying to really do as much as we can in the FIFA wider gaming culture, which is massive, right? I think because if you look at it, nobody under the age of 32 has actually experienced football without a virtual kind of accompaniment, in this sense, FIFA or PS for that matter, right? And if you look at anyone under 40, They can tell you that similar to how you would have muscle memory to swipe up your phone, you can actually remember some of the buttons that you would press if you're playing FIFA. So our focus is really trying to, enter into the mainstream pop culture around FIFA.
So it's broadly around FIFA, then, isn't it? And would I be right in assuming that many people in Asia would have learned about the heroes of La Liga, teams, all the players through the game, more so than the product itself on broadcast TV? Or
I would say that is a very strong entry point for us, just purely based on the fact that out of the 70 nations in which EA has licenses, La Liga is actually the most played league within it. As you can imagine, obviously with the Giants, right? Everybody wants players from there, they want to use the clubs there. And as a result of that, we have, I would say, about 1 billion games that happen using La Liga clubs. So that's a massive entry point for us.
Right. Carlos, when you think about your business today at the group level, so you've got an enormous business in the mixed martial arts with ONE Championship, you have ONE Esports. I'm assuming there's not another one. Is there ONE Fashion coming out soon? Have we got something to look forward to there?
No surprise announcements.
Nothing would shock me
You're not gonna
about
get me
ONE
there.
Championship, the one organization. But what is the bigger vision with the group now? With this ONE Esports? And is the desire to have this business that you lead to be equal or bigger to is there a bit of rivalry there now?
Well, I mean, look, first of all, Group One Holdings, which kind of is the largest shareholder of ONE Esports. Dentsu is also the minority shareholder in ONE Esports. Obviously, we're competitive. I mean, like, of course, we want the esports business to be as big as our older brother ONE Championship. I mean, they've been a 10-year-old business. We, in many respects, are drafting behind them and paying respect. But as the younger brother, like, of course, we're trying to be bigger than they are. But we spend a lot of time leveraging each other. I mean, I have the benefit of learning all the lessons that ONE Championship has learned in the last 10 years. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things that we have to do differently because the martial arts audience is different than the esports audience. But one thing is common among both of them. First is that we have both properties are highly Gen Z and millennial. So that is one thing. And second thing is both of them are highly engaged and have a very high affinity for everything that's mobile. And as a matter of fact, our research indicates that close to a little over 50% of our martial arts audience is into gaming and esports. That was another rationale. Besides this opportunity that we saw around compelling storytelling that's needed in esports, also the fact that there was already an embedded overlap between the two genres that gave us confidence to launch the business. And certainly in the last 2 years, it's been an incredible journey. Our business has really evolved to essentially be a complete content stack for esports. We host and execute some of the world's biggest esports events. In April, we did the Dota 2 Major here in Singapore. That generated more than 250 million views around the world. We own and operate OneEsports.gg, which is already globally a top 5 global esports news site. Our social is massively engaged. We are hitting close to 300 million impressions on social. And we just recently, as a testimony to another part of our business, which is our studio business, we just recently released a docuseries on the Dota 2 Major, behind-the-scenes documentary that was released something like 6 or 7 days ago and has already generated more than 6 million views. So we've really evolved to be a complete content stack for esports, and we've been privileged to work with some of the world's best brands to help them connect and engage with esports.
Right. So in terms of your main revenue streams for the business, to help me understand it, you've got the production of events, producing esports tournaments.
Yes.
Hosting titles that exist by the likes of Riot Games and other properties that we saw today. Yeah. With that, I imagine that's one of your major sources of revenue.
Yeah. So I spend half of my time trying to say that esports is different than traditional sports, and then the other half just saying that esports is just sports.
Yeah.
And the reason why I start there is because if you were to look at kind of where we generate revenue, it's primarily sponsorships, media rights, and then a little bit of merchandise and ticket sales. But that is generally the same kind of distribution that you would see at another more traditional sports business as well.
Right. But is there any aspiration to build your own game? Work with the publisher, develop your own property?
No. I mean, like, developing a world-class esports title is a whole entire different set of capabilities and DNA than what it takes to be a compelling storyteller around the athletes that play the sport. And we feel that we have an advantage and a real unique set of capabilities in the way that we tell stories and how we do it across all of our channels that really makes that special. We see that as a competitive advantage that is very sustainable in the long run.
Right. Just with you, Russell, I understand a bit, a lot about your FIFA partnership. Do you find, like, as LaLiga is in Asia and you're aggressively trying to expand your own new audiences for your core product, the football product on the pitch, do you look at esports as a new marketing channel for you to bring in new customers into the core business?
I think it's what we kind of talked about earlier. I wouldn't consider it as esports as the competitive side of things, as a channel for us to get entry point, because we do have sort of international amateur fan cups, because ultimately a lot of, let's talk about Asia, right? A lot of them aspire to become more than what they are right now, I think, which alludes back to what Carlos was mentioning about that storytelling element, right? So for us, we focus a lot in terms of what amateurs could achieve, right? So for instance, we have fan cups where they get a chance to not only play and be the best among the amateurs, but they could potentially even represent a club in Spain, for that matter, right? So that kind of element of it is very strong. If we talk about it, I think, it's focusing a lot more on the experience, the fan experience. So when we talk about trying to blur the lines between virtual and physical, we are talking about, okay, so maybe you are in a stadium in FIFA and you hear the chants, you hear the local sounds, you hear the jeers even, right? We have that because it's real broadcast sounds. And imagine you get that and you send these players or these fans to Spain and they catch a match in real life and they're like, wait, I've been here before, right? It's the exact same experience for them. And so our aim is really to bring that fan experience to them through FIFA as a touch point, also through different partnerships that we have, such as with Sorare in NFT gaming, right? Where fantasy is a huge sort of genre as well in Asia, right? We talked about appealing to Asians in general, and I think Sorare is a chance for us to really appeal to them through a genre that they are familiar with, which is fantasy football.
Yeah, I might touch on that in a minute because I want to go a little bit deep on Sorare because I'm curious on that. With One Championship have built a new property, One Esports, right? And they're building a whole new organization around that. Do you see a point where LaLiga might go, you know what, we're going to have our own league as well, like a virtual league, an online league as well, and have players all over the world competing at a LaLiga, tournament but a property that you own as the organization? Do you see that those plans are possibly on the horizon, or is it sticking to just your partnerships with FIFA and things like that?
I think at this point, like I said, with that 10-year partnership, it is difficult to kind of look beyond that at this stage. And I think unlike what Carlos and the team has been able to do, where they look at different titles, different esports titles, not just game titles, but for us, we are very much still focused in terms of that virtual football side of things, right? So I would say maybe after this 10 years, we could be looking at different things, but as of now, our focus is really trying to get top of mind for FIFA in that sense, and football in general.
Yeah. Carlos, let's talk about China for a little bit.
Yeah.
While just being sensitive around the topic. How big is that business for you now, for One Esports in China?
From an audience perspective, it's sizable. I mean, as I mentioned to you a few minutes ago, we had the Dota 2 Major, a little over 250 million of those views. Well, there was more than 250 million views around the world. More than 200 of it came from China. So look, at the end of the day, if you want to stack the world's best esports teams, you're pretty much either going to see a Korean flag there or you're going to see a Chinese flag there. So I think any esports business that has global aspirations, you got to be thinking about China. China is a very important market for us. As I just said, I mean, it's a massive source of engagement and viewership, particularly for our Dota 2 activities.
Right. Do you see any issues with the recent crackdown on gaming for youth and limiting their time to certain periods throughout the week? Does that, when you see that, do you say, oh, that's healthy for the industry, and does it affect you at all? What's your approach on that?
Yeah, great question. A few things that I would say, and I'm going to take this into the space of traditional stick and ball sports. There are a ton of research that has already indicated that taking a young boy or girl and having them specialize in one sport at a very early age is detrimental to their athletic career. The best athletes continually have been shown to be those athletes when they were young, they played multiple sports, okay? And so I think, again, this is a case where I'm in the other 50% where I'm saying esports is just like a traditional stick and ball sports. So I think young people should be experiencing a lot of different things, not just esports. They should be playing baseball and football and rugby and soccer. Like, to have a diverse childhood, I think, is a very important thing for their development. Now, the other thing I would say is there is a huge difference between gaming and esports, right? And when you look at the people who are playing at the highest levels in these leagues, I mean, they're uniquely talented individuals. I mean, we're talking about incredibly special people. And so, you know, in the long run, I think it's just going to be healthy for our industry. And moreover, it really doesn't impact us in the short term too, because the vast majority of the players are over 18. Where the money is being spent is with people that are over 18 as well, right? So I really don't see a huge correlation between what's happening geopolitically and the health of our sport and industry.
With China, do you expect to create success there as a Singapore headquartered business, or do you look to create a joint venture with the Chinese partner?
Well, one, I don't think you can do China without a partner in China, right? So, I think all I'll say here is we may be based in Singapore, we're 40 people, but we have, we have people in Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, and also in China as well. So our aspirations are global, and we're going to keep opening up offices, and we're going to keep expanding.
Nothing stops the one organization, does it?
You can't. I mean, like, we have big, huge aspirations, and we're going to go after them.
Yeah, love it, Carlos. Russell, let's get back to this topic you wanted to talk about, Sorare, right?
Yeah.
So can you explain to the audience and the people who are watching online, what is the platform? What value does it deliver the fan and for La Liga?
Right, so Sorare, in a nutshell, is a fantasy football platform in which you have licensed digital collectibles of players. And similar to your weekend, let's say, fantasy football league, your aim is basically to get cards of these players and build a team. And you compete against anyone else who looks to do that. So, for instance, with Sorare, I think the difference here is that, first of all, we are the first of the top 5 European leagues to be a part of it. And shortly after, we see Bundesliga just announced their partnership with Sorare. So what this does for football fans and for users of Sorare, for instance, just NFT collectors in general, is that it enhances their experience, right? I think much like what we talked about in FIFA. When you license an official product, it becomes very much part of the authenticity and increases the quality of the product. So as a result of that, you are effectively owning the digital cards to, the superstars that you love, right? If you imagine maybe back then when people collect Panini cards, for instance, it's the kind of same concept where you would unpack and you'll be so obsessed with, getting, let's say, a holofoil or the player that you love, right? So similarly with Sorare, you are able to not only open packs at the start when you first join, but you're able to bid using ETH in order to get other player cards.
Yeah. What's your approach to NFTs? And are you working with a company like Sorare or Dapper, perhaps, Dapper Labs, who created the NBA product?
So all I'll say here is we haven't announced something yet.
Okay. Can we do it today? We've
No.
got people here. Save you a bit of money. You've got the cameras, you've got the audience.
Obviously, it's an interesting space, and it dovetails very nicely with our audience and what they're into. But no announcements today.
Okay. What do you guys think about, I'll ask each of you for your opinion on this. We saw enormous success from NBA Top Shop, right? And that really piped up everyone in the global sports industry's attention, going, how do we get a slice of this cake? That was predominantly a North American product, North American customers, as far as I could see and what I know. Do you think that that type of product, let's start with you, for even like football-related content, do you think that easily translates into Asia? And do you think people in, say, for example, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, even perhaps India, they're open and willing to pay for these type of digital, more speculative NFTs?
To be honest, I think they do. Just looking at, obviously you mentioned the success of Hotshot, right? I think Hotshot effectively propelled NFT collectibles to the mainstream, right? I mean, that's kind of where they are. And of course, now that we are in partnership with them and we're developing something for 2022 onwards, I think Asia will go mad. The reason why is because, for instance, when we have legends in market, you see throngs of crowds just throwing themselves at these legends, and these legends have been retired for the past 10, 15, 20 years, right? And at the same time, if you look at all of the most sort of sought after content on socials, right? We talked about socials earlier. A lot of them are actually on this day, what happened? Or for that matter, you know, top 10 goals of this particular match for that matter, right? And so what NBA Top Shot or what Dapper Lab is doing with us especially is to be able to look back 10 years, pull out the best moments in history, which, you know, could be goosebump inducing for many, right? If they look at an old footage and they remember that moment right where they were seated, maybe in the stadium, maybe at home, in their boxes, for instance, and eating that particular food, right? They remember the exact moment that they experienced that particular part of the game. Right. And I think that becomes something really, really powerful for people to want to own as well.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's a beautiful moment in time, isn't it? If you can own that, and I'm curious to see the community out in Asia. I'm going to ask you this question shortly too. I just want to make a note. If anyone's watching online and you have a question, ask a question in the chat box. If anyone out in the live audience here has a question, just put up your hand and I'll look for you. We've got about 10 minutes left. Carlos, what do you think about Russell? Do you think the Asia audiences across Southeast Asia particularly are willing to pay for digital NFT products, perhaps related to your type products or anything else?
I 100% yes. And the way I would answer this is maybe from a different angle, which is to say, I think all of us that are sitting here today are participating in a very rare time in history. And that rare time in history is that what is cool, what is innovative, is no longer the dominance of the West. It is the East that is dictating what is cool and culturally relevant. And I don't need to tell you what it is. K-pop, Squid Game, green tea, yoga. For the last 7 to 10 years, things that are happening in this part of the world are taking over. And so I think in some respects, the more relevant question is, what will the West take from the East? Because I think in many cases, the East is for sure leading the way. And in the one space where that is really evident in esports is in mobile.
Yep.
In mobile esports, it's really taking a grasp here, and I think you're going to see in the Western world that mobile esports is going to grow as well.
Right. Avocado milkshakes. That's what they need in America. they don't understand that. When you, as you go in your business now, how does one as an organization now sort of communicate their vision and their position? I read online a mission was to develop Asia's largest millennial sports content producer.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a bit about that?
Well, I mean, one, I think the messaging that you just read is a little bit more for the B2B community.
Okay.
I think where I spend a lot of my time is thinking about how do we position ourselves among the fans in the community, right? Because at the end of the day, if you can't capture the hearts and minds of the community and capture fandom, it doesn't matter what your messaging to the B2B community is, right? And the way that we like to position ONE Esports with the community is that we're going to tell the most compelling stories of their esports heroes. And those esports heroes we define broadly. not just esports athletes, but the people behind the camera, the people telling the stories, the people that are programming the games. That's where we want to focus the quality of storytelling and how that story gets told across multiple channels.
Okay, we've got a question online, so I'll go to it. Stephen Maxwell Tan, thank you for asking the question. I don't expect you guys to have a definitive answer, but I'm interested to hear your opinion. Does the environmental impact of energy production required to produce NFTs on current platforms, for example, Ethereum or whatever, do you, or with Dapper, what's Dapper's platform?
Dapper Labs.
No, but what's the platform that they develop?
They develop their own called Flow.
Flow, that's right. Do you think the environmental impact of producing those products are an impediment in Asia? Do you think that's a consideration for them not to buy here, or do you think they don't care?
Short answer, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. How about you, Carla?
The way I would answer this is I would still stick to my guns and tell you that I think this is a viable commercial opportunity, not just in this part of the world, but globally. But what I also will say, which may contradict myself a little bit here, is that consistently, not in all the research that you see about Gen Z and millennials, they are focused on sustainability.
Yeah.
So eventually, NFTs, crypto is going to have to tackle that issue.
Yeah.
Because that is a hot topic for this generation.
Yeah.
That generation.
Yeah, and it's evolving as well. There's two questions from the floor in our live audience. Where are they?
Andrew, it's John Dykes here.
John.
I'm on, and the mic's working, which is good. First of all, shout out to the sports guys for getting jackets on stage today. Well done, guys.
All right.
Just quickly, we're here, and thanks to Jasper for getting us in a big room rather than a small room. It really feels good to be networking once again. And with that in mind, can I just ask you if there's anything that's been learned over the last 18 months in terms of lessons learned that you've been able to use to inform decisions now, and particularly in the virtual space, because so much shifted in that direction. Has it informed decisions that you've made in your businesses now?
Do you want to start, Carlos?
Yeah. I think the short answer, which may trickle into a longer answer, is the mentality and the philosophy of test and learn, for sure, has been one of the biggest insights that I've gotten as a business person and a business leader, which is when COVID hit in the beginning of 2020, look, you can imagine a big part of our business is live events. I was worried, but what it turned out, 2020 couldn't have been a better year for us, and this year is going to be, knock on wood, we're going to end strongly as well. A lot of that I give to the team, really taking on a test and learn mentality, testing different influencers, testing different platforms, what works, what messaging works, what doesn't work, doing a ton of A/B testing. One of the things that a variation of this question is, hey, in 2020, marketing budget shrank. So how were you successful? Well, the reason why we were successful is because our partners also engendered a test and learn. And what happened was, while marketing budgets certainly shrunk, fortunately for us, we were looked at as a safe haven to test and learn. And so what we found was so many different brands were like, okay, listen, my budget has shrunk, but now is the time that I actually can afford to take a risk, to do some pilots. And so for me, that's the biggest lesson, which is test and learn, pilot, do a lot of experimentation, because this environment is just increasingly going to be volatile and uncertain.
Do you think COVID made you a more resilient organization?
So what I would say is maybe a different version of the quote, which is, adversity reveals character, it doesn't create it. And what I mean by that is, if you had a business that wasn't resilient or wasn't robust before COVID, well, I think you were kind of done. And we see that, right? You saw a lot of big names, you saw a lot of big companies go into bankruptcy, and a lot of that was because, frankly, they were probably experiencing symptoms of a business model that wasn't healthy, and then COVID totally unleashed hell on them. So that's the way I would answer that.
Yeah. Russell, with respect to John's question, I mean, major sports leagues around the world got hit hard, right? At different periods over the last 18 months. What changed with your organization then since this? What's sort of changed in the mentality of the thinking? Are they more hungry to find new revenue opportunities, or are they going gung-ho into esports, or what's changed about the organization?
Like you mentioned, I think the pandemic struck everyone. Obviously, the sports leagues kind of got it, especially at the start, a bit harder, especially when we had to stop our live matches. I think from there, two things happened. First of all, innovation happened within the organization, where we started looking at different ways in which, we could still interact with our fans, but doing it in not just a safe way, but in a very culturally nuanced way. So for instance, within, the effects of the pandemic, our local teams in each of the markets, our local delegates in each of the markets have actually proven more valuable than ever before, right? Because we were able to kind of meet them at their needs. Second of all, we were also able to understand the power of nostalgia, right? Within the pandemic, I think with the uncertainty of everything, people were really looking at sort of things that, they remember to be a safe zone, right? So for instance, a lot of you started turning to card collections, right? People picked up old hobbies, not just exercising, not just gaming, but a lot of old things, right? And obviously the fact that not everyone can play football 5-a-side or 11-a-side now, depending on where we are, the demand for football and live sports went through the roof. So the moment we were able to come back, everyone just went bonkers about watching here.
Okay, we've got one last question from the floor, then we're going to wrap up. Where's the question coming from? Yep, down here.
Okay. So, wait, to them?
Do you want to ask?
What's that? Too late? Still coming?
Hi there, Kevin McCullough from Sport Business.
Kevin.
There's been lots of great work, obviously, in the sports industry to kind of adapt to the new realities of social media, digital technology. But it's still regarded sometimes as being behind the esports and gaming sector, especially when engaging young and new fans. I was wondering what the guys think the big lessons sports still needs to learn from esports and gaming are.
Yeah, so this might sound unusual, but I think the esports industry has a lot to learn from traditional stick and ball sports too. And a lot of that, I would say is related to my comments around storytelling. But one thing, and I apologize for this analogy, I'm an American, but in American football in the NFL, Monday Night Football is a big night. And there's been a show there that's been a total hit called the Manning Cast, which is Peyton and Eli Manning, two brothers, two incredible quarterbacks, literally just two brothers breaking down Monday Night Football together. And I truly, honestly believe that came from gaming, in the sense, the casualness, the spontaneity, the brothers kind of tearing into each other a little bit. That all smells to me that kind of came from gaming and esports and watching Twitch. And that's been massively successful. I just recently saw the NHL, the hockey league in the United States. They had Charles Barkley, who's a Hall of Fame basketball player, with Wayne Gretzky. Same kind of concept, like really funny, a little bit more informal, more casual, friendly, ribbing each other. I think all that comes a little bit from gaming and esports.
Yeah, sure. We're just going to go one more question from the audience. We've got a question from a student over here.
1 minute.
Okay.
You can tell us your name and what are you studying, and what's your question?
My name's Mara, and I am in my final year of high school. My question was just, so Carlos, you mentioned earlier how you thought it was important that people at a young age are exposed to a variety of activities to help broaden their spectrum of abilities and capabilities. And how would you say that esports allows a person to expand their cognitive capabilities and be more effective in everyday life or in just whatever they want to specialize in?
Yeah, great question. And I used to do this, pre-COVID when we would fill up big conferences. And I would always kind of get a question from a parent who would ask about esports and gaming. And I would do this. I'd be like, okay, stand up if you work at a global company, and like half the room would stand up. And then I'd say, okay, remain standing if your team is like composed of people from around the world, and more people, and a lot of people would stay standing. And I say, okay, for those who are standing, how many times do you actually physically see and meet those people? And like, you know, the answer was like once or twice a year. What does that sound like? That's exactly happening every single second, every minute of the day when young men and women are playing esports. And remember, as I said, there's a difference between gaming and esports. In esports, you gotta win. You gotta win as a team. And so the leadership, the interpersonal skills that you're learning in a virtual and digital environment, one could argue is a little bit more powerful than what potentially you can learn on a physical pitch. So I'm a huge proponent of the leadership and the teamwork and the communication skills that people can learn in esports. The other thing I would say too is, you know, think broadly about esports. Esports is not just about being an esports athlete. I mean, at the end of the day, the odds of, I think Charles Barkley, you know, said this as well. He says, the odds of an African-American male becoming an NBA basketball player is worse than him becoming a neurosurgeon. It's the same thing in esports, okay? Like, to become an esports athlete is incredibly difficult, but there are a lot of other jobs in esports. And again, this is where, and the other half, which is similar to traditional stick and ball sports. There's marketing, business development, production, social, there's agencies, there's a ton of things that that young people can be doing in esports outside of just aspiring to be an esports athlete.
Right, great answer and great question. Question of the day, Jasper, from the student over there. Anyway, that's it. That's a wrap. Thank you all for joining today. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Russell.
Thank you.
And hopefully we speak soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Andrew.
Good work, man.
Awesome.
You had the chance to wear socks today, and you
Not
did.
for you, man.
Thank you. That was, I have written, look, I'd written the same thing. Question of the day. From
You
Tim.
too, Jasper. Can we just give Jasper a round of applause? It's not been easy for you. Good work.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so we've done esports, we've done the metaverse, we've done music, we've done sport. Tomorrow, it's all about the brands, the money. We have Unilever, we have MasterCard, we have Mindshare, Sportfive, Wonderman Thompson. We also have the global release, live and exclusive here on stage, of the Gaming Demystified survey, the second time we did it. We did it 2 years ago. This is a study of over 100 CMOs and their attitudes to gaming. Sneak preview. Since 2 years ago, 2019, spending to gaming has gone up 5 times in 2 years, 5x in 2 years. And 70% of them in the survey plan to invest more money in the next 12 months. So find out who they are, find out what they're talking about. Tomorrow, live here at 10 o'clock. So thank you for joining us today. First live event in 2 years. We'll be back here at 10. Be here at 9. You've got to get tested again, but thank you so much for your time. We'll see you tomorrow morning.